Hello everybody, welcome to the Northern Film Review. Last week we talked about the now infamous M. Night Shyamalan film, Signs, and I've somewhat huge discuss for the film. This week we'll be reviewing one of my many favourites, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, the distinguished French film from the director Céline Sciamma. Ooh, maybe. Hope you enjoy.
The Northern Film Review, with your hosts, Oliver Ellis and Luke Simpson.
Okay, so hello everybody. Back again with another film, different film, fun film. It's a bit of a different one this week, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's a bit of I think a different maybe, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting one, probably one that people really haven't seen. It's very sort of indie and very sort of niche and fantastic. But before we get into that, how are you doing, Luke?
I am good. Yeah. Had a bit of a weird sleep schedule with uni work.
Yeah.
I've been going to bed at like 4 o'clock in the morning because of of uni work and waking up at 2 in the afternoon. But I think I'm getting back into my normal schedule now. But that was a weird week.
I think
got lots of uni work. Yeah,
because we have we don't really have lectures anymore. We just have tutorials or seminar groups, as other people would call them. And I have 2, and they're both at 10 a.m, which is the earliest seminar group you can have for both my experimental film and my my drama film. And it's just because with the filmmaking of our drama films, it's like I was in a group that was to make the group first. I thought, okay, we've made the group first. This is what they've been telling us to do, to make a group really quickly. Maybe we'll get some sort of wonderful prize for it. Like we'll have a good slot. No, we have the worst slot, the earliest time, and because it's the earliest time, 2 of our members hardly show up. So it's a bit. It is what it is, I suppose.
So ours is completely different. My drama is on 11, but then my experimental is at 4.
Wow, those are good times, man. I suppose it's easy for me to remember when it is, but
10 and 10.
10 and 10, and I'm just like, wake up. And I'm not really the sort of person who goes to bed right after something. Once I'm up, I'm up. There's no going back from that, and it's quite a, I feel like I feel like I'm moaning about like, I have to wake up at 10 o'clock. But
people normally wake up at like 7, so
but I did when I was a commercial like sort of radio host. I used to have this weekend show, and it was in the morning, and I had to wake up at 5 every morning on a weekend in order to do this show. It was absolute hell. But
you couldn't tell. You're quite well known, not well known, but
I'm not well known. I'm not well known.
You've done radio a lot more than I have, or you're used to this thing. And he's the one who got me. Yeah, you're the one who got me into this.
Yeah,
so.
I technically have a qualification in radio. I have an A-level in radio media production, which is as useful as it sounds. But I've got an A in it though, so
that's pretty good.
Whatever. But yeah, so the film Portrait of a Lady on Fire, it is a wonderful, wonderful foreign film. Comes all the way from France, which isn't that far now, but with Brexit, it seems further. And it's a film that you haven't seen before. It's one of my favourites, and it is really just quite wonderful and really well made. And I think, do you want to tell the people, like, kind of give them a little bit of a synopsis first before we do so?
Yeah, so like what Oliver said, I've never seen this film before, and it was actually Oliver who suggested me to watch it, and he really wanted to get this film on the podcast. So he was like, right, this week we're doing this film. So I sat down one evening and watched it, and so basically the film is about this young woman who is commissioned to paint a portrait for another for this young aristocratic woman who is set to marry this Italian aristocrat. And in that era, basically, the woman who's getting married always gets a portrait painted of them to have in their new home. But this woman doesn't want to get married. Doesn't want to marry into this family, and so she refuses to sit for the portrait. So basically, this young painter basically becomes her friend. And follows her around, and she basically memorizes her face and paints in private. But by doing this, she kind of falls in love with this woman, and that's all I can say really without going into too much spoilers. But
I think if you listen to this podcast, you're gonna get quite a few spoilers on the film.
This is the basic gist. That's the basic gist of the film. It's I think 1700s. I think it was set in. So basically, the love is kind of not on really. But back then, you didn't really see many lesbian couples and stuff like that. So it's.
At all, yeah.
No, not at all. Yeah, so it's quite an odd thing, but to see how it all unfolds and throughout the film, and there are some U-turns and some good twists in the film, really.
Yeah, I think. So, it's an all sort of female dominated film.
Yeah.
So the director is female. She's French. Yeah, and the cinematographer is also female, and it's basically throughout the entire film. There's basically, I think there's one male speaking role, and that is at the very, 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 very end of the film. And I think he's just like an art critic guy. But the majority of the film, it is just women, and it is kind of centered around this sort of, two women who have this forbidden love, which is quite nice. But in terms of like what the other critics have been saying, so other critics, are we critics?
No, we're not really.
I was thinking we're not really. We just kind of tell you about the film. So Metacritic, which I prefer than Rotten Tomatoes, 95 critic score, which is really quite high, and a user score of 8.7. And this is sort of a quote from a long quote from the New Yorker. The movie dramatizes the constraints of the era, the imposition of a narrow and religion-based morality, the stern discipline that is internalized as a result, the illusion of women and their world from public life, and the firm expectations of family and society that Eloise will endure in her unwanted marriage. Yet it does more than merely depict them, it embodies them in the characters' poised stillness, which makes the airy soundings feel as rigid as stone. Which is a beautiful it's from the New Yorker, so it's obviously a very well written critique there. And there is another one I found in it. This is nothing but pure art. Every scene feels like it's cut from a novel. And this is an interesting one I found on Metacritic, because it has like the sort of the user. It's not just actual sort of film critics, but it's user critics. And I found this one sort of funny because it's a bit stupid. And it's by someone called Brad Feet.
What an English-sounding name, Brad.
Its last name's Feet. Imagine having last name Feet. Anyway, so he says it's boring, depressing. Just skip to the nude scenes and love scenes. It's not worth your almost 2 hours. Which I think is a bit, I don't know. And I put in my notes here, does not capitalize it and too many sort of pauses in his sentence there. So Brad Feet, you're both illiterate and
horny.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I'm gonna put it any other way. So And then Rotten Tomatoes 98 critic score, which is even higher than.
I think that's the highest one. Ring a ding a ding ding ding.
I think it might be about the same as Parasite, which is our first one we did.
Surprisingly, both foreign films.
Yeah. 92 the user score. And the Chicago Reader says it's a slow burn, sure, but the embers are remarkable. And then Flickering Myth, which I don't know what publication that is, crackles and dances like a titular flames, as dangerous and unpredictable as it is beautiful and fascinating. Which I think a lot of these sorts of things are general depictions of how beautiful the film is. And before we started recording about the podcast, you were kind of like talking about how beautiful you thought it was.
Yeah. Basic. So when I watched it, I kind of zoned out. Really, I didn't really listen to much of the dialogue. I was looking at how beautiful the images were, the shots were. They were just immaculate. Filmed in 8K, which literally just absorbs all the color, and it was beautiful. So I was watching this. So whilst doing it, I watched the film and then also watched a couple of people reviewing it. And this quote from this review on YouTube called Chris Stuckman, it really stuck with me. It's like it's a film about a painter, but it was filmed like it was painted. It has these lovely colours, and it was just so beautiful. Yes, drama's not my favourite genre of films, but you can get some of the most beautiful images from drama, especially period pieces, especially pastels, especially that with the dresses that they were wearing. It really stood out to me, and I really think more people should watch it. It's especially if you're a cinematographer. It's a film that you should take inspiration from. Really.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful, and I like your point that it looks like art. It looks like a painting, and there are so many sort of scenes within the film. I watch them like that. That could just be a Renaissance painting, because it's just the colors are so vibrant, and the sort of the detail is so wonderful, and the constant motif without the film of painting and doing the portraits is really sort of wonderful and interesting. And it was shot in 7K, so very, very, very detailed on a red camera, a red Monstro.
If you don't know what red is probably the best probably camera you can get. Really, I think consumer wise as well.
Yeah, the first way I heard of red was through like these tech YouTubers getting all of these sort of really, really expensive, like £100,000 cameras to film their YouTube videos with. Which is the proper film cameras that are used to sort of make the films like this. And if you just watch any scene from this film, the colors are so vibrant, and it's just absolutely fantastic. You look at it and you're like, wow.
I do think I think it is important, especially in a film about painting and about painters, to have vibrant colors and have a good cinematography. Really, it just goes like hand in hand with each other, and well, that did it perfectly. And you see other films about artists like Van Gogh. I think it's a film called Van Gogh or something like that. That was a lovely a film. So films about painters surprisingly always have really good visuals, and especially I think.
And it's just so beautiful, and it's just like it looks like a Renaissance painting, and it's so amazing. And I think because I'm using this film as one part of one of my essays, so I know quite a lot about this film, and it is one of the sort of the main sort of ideas of this film and behind this film is the sort of the idea that it is the gays, not like the gays, GAYS. Although it is technically about that. It's about the gays in sort of art critique, GAZE. I hope I spelled those right. I'm not very good at spelling, but I'm thinking, is that how you spell that?
I think it gaze with the eyes. So I think this film focused on the woman's gaze, and then because most films are about the male gaze, but this film's about the woman's gaze, and it's probably one of a few films that I've seen that focus on the women's gaze. I sound, I don't know, but yeah, it's
so wonderfully sort of like female centered, and I love seeing more and more sort of female centered films, and it is truly fantastic to watch. And I think what we sort of mean by the gaze is like who's looking at who, and like when you look at a painting, where are like the sort of who is the person in the painting looking at? Who is who are you the art? Is the painting the art? Who's looking at who in the painting? What are they looking at? What is their sort of eyeline directed towards? And it does it in such a wonderful way. And I think another thing that this film just does so well, although like we said, it is very, very, very pretty. It is also just incredibly well written. And I think perhaps I think I might have talked about this in the Parasite episode, where I sometimes feel that stuff that has been translated from one language to another tends to be a bit sort of, I don't know. You might lose some of the nuance that was there in the original language. Like I mean, and again, this is from my sort of perspective of like people who know actual other languages, and they tend to say something along those lines as well, because you have to sort of but this really doesn't lose any nuance.
No, in my opinion, I think foreign films get shafted. In other words, especially just casual moviegoer. What I find that films, yes, audio is important. So yes, dialogue should be in English so you can understand it. But film is a visual art. It's more about what you can see. So when I look at it, I always judge a visual. I judge a film on the visual, story, and editing. Yes, audio is important, but in my opinion, I do think visuals is massive in a film, because if visuals are rubbish, then you don't want to watch it. But what I found out is by watching, I don't want to call them foreign films. I want to call them films because they are. I don't want to categorize them into a separate genre. When I found out watching this film and also Parasite that the visuals are just immaculate, and that's what makes a film to me. Yes, I wasn't a fan. I'm not a fan of dramas, and I'm not a fan of romantic films. But when I was watching it, I switched that part of me off, and just looked at the colours, the flow of the film, just how it looked, and that's what I want films to be marked on, and get people to go and watch films that are visually stunning, really.
I agree. I think the visuals of a film are a very sort of poignant aspect. I mean, this film in particular. So before I sort of, this film is completely the score is more or less completely diegetic.
Yes.
Well, I think it is. And what that means is there's no sort of all of the music is coming from the story. So there's no like music that is just kind of there to like kind of build sort of emotional, but it is coming from the world of the portrait of a Lady on Fire. And there is only 2 songs in this entire like sort of 2-hour film, and that's really quite a low amount. But
and very unusual as well for a film.
Yeah, very unusual, and I think there's not a lot of sort of, key aspects like that. But within the story, the idea of music really plays a very sort of important sort of story arc within it. That Eloise is kind of she goes to Venice and then she listens to the music at the very end, and it's kind of reminds her of a past lover, and it's all sort of wonderful and I don't know, mind bending and that sort of thing, or heart bending even. But when the music is played in the film, though, it's done in such a spectacular way that really is just kind of like that. It uses these sort of like moments where they're thinking about their relationship and they're thinking about the time of, oh, this is fantastic, this is wonderful, and it's kind of like it points to sort of a nice sort of way of like, oh, the start of the first song is the way of like the actual real start of the relationship, and then the final song is the very end of the relationship. So the relationship is like music, it's like wonder, it's like fun, and yeah, it's done in such a wonderful way. Although there's very little music in it, it's done in such a wonderful way that you do remember the music in it. Unlike Signs.
What I like about the lack of music is that you can choose what you feel. I feel like I think I can't remember which episode I spoke about it in, but music can convey emotions for you instead of you digging your own emotions from the film. So you might be watching it. I think I talked about it might be Shining actually. The fact that if you watch Psycho without the audio, it's without the music, it's not as scary as it with the audio and the music in, and it could be any film. And if the music is solemn, it can make you feel solemn as well. It's slow and just high and just it makes you feel sad, and that makes. And I think that's kind of manipulating you to feel a certain emotion to react to that film, and it's like, oh, I'm supposed to cry at this point, so you start crying, or oh, I'm supposed to be a bit scared at this point, so I should be scared, like high pitched violins. But I think this film makes you choose your own emotions instead of the filmmaker choosing the emotion for you.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I completely agree. It's just, this film just does so much well. It just every sort of part of it is just meticulously thought of and sort of wonderfully done. And I think I find it hard to sort of think of anything really in the film that is done wrong or I think could be better really. I think when we talked about Signs last week, there's basically so much of the film that we were like, we could just do this better, or like we could think of like so many different ways in which this could have been done better, and we were just like, it's just like this bit doesn't make sense, that bit doesn't make sense. And I suppose maybe that's more with scary sort of aliens attacking the world. I think there may be more holes to pick in there. But I also don't know anything about 17th century lesbians. But I can't pick any holes in this story. It's done in such a wonderful way that you can't pick holes in it. It's very hard to, and the story is so sort of wonderfully sort of intact and wonderfully sort of held together.
Some of the things that I've heard and that when I was watching some reviews, they picked up on is that the edit is slow, but then they also retract that by saying, yes, it's slow because they want you to focus on the conversation that is happening. You don't want quick cuts and stuff like that. They want to keep you immersed in the conversation, and there's barely any quick cuts in it. They hang on the shot for a while so you can get intimate with them, and I think that's what the filmmaker's trying to get across is I think they want you to be a part of the story and be intimate with this couple.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is perhaps the criticism someone might make of the film, that it is a bit slow.
So, it's slow burner, no pun intended.
Yeah. And I think, I think that kind of boils down to like, it is perhaps a criticism, but in a sense of like a stylistic sort of choice. Like, I prefer horror movies to thrillers, and that's not like because thrillers are worse than horror movies or horror movies worse than thrillers. It's just a sort of opinion, and I think I think some things in film are unequivocally sort of bad and should be hated on, and it's not like sort of an opinion or like sort of the film stylistically, but it's just that they're bad. I think that's the sort of the thing with the pace of the Portrait of a Lady on Fire, is that it's sort of it is what it is, and it does it in such a good way. And I think if you had described this film to me about a year or two ago, I would have just been like, I'm not watching that.
Dull. I don't think I don't think I would have watched this film if I didn't come to a film school, and if I didn't meet you, really. It's one that flew under the radar for most people, especially even foreign film critics. It flew under the radar for lots of people, and I think you should go watch it. Especially, yes, it's a foreign film, especially Greta Gerwig fans. It's a kind of slow burner, and if you like some of the Greta Gerwig's films, I think she did Little Woman, and I can't remember the other one she did, but she does romantic period pieces, and the adaptation of Little Woman was really well regarded, and I think if you enjoyed that, then you would love this film, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is on Mubi, MUBI, which is
please sponsor us.
Please sponsor us. Which is free for film students. I don't know whether it's free for students, and it is great though if you do want to pay for it. And it is on there, and Mubi has sort of great films. I'm trying to sort of in my mind kind of like tally is up with sort of very female-centered films that is sort of female protagonist, and so I can't think.
I mean, recently they've been trying to do female-oriented films, and I think they've come across really cringy, especially in Americanized films, such as the new. You can see that Ghostbusters, But
I also think, although like some of them may come across a bit cringy, I think if the female Ghostbusters film was made with men, I think it would have also just been cringy, to be honest with you.
Then you also got the new Oceans, I think 7 as well. They tried to go women oriented on that. I think they've been going in the wrong direction to try and do women oriented films. They've been doing big blockbusters of predominantly male films, so like such as the Oceans trilogy and the Ghostbusters. They should do what they did here and just focus on 2 women, and basically 2 women, and then this made in between them. But like you said, it had like a man right at the end. But it was such a great film, and that's what I think. American, I think that's what people should go more towards, rather than basically what I'm trying to say is, rather than going for a big blockbuster, go for it in India oriented adaptation or a film, and then from there you can go up and then try and do more. That's what Greta Gerwig's trying to do, and that's what this director's doing. It's working, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with some of that, but I think the female Ghostbusters film was directed by a man, and I think if you're trying to sort of make female-oriented films that have a sort of a main female protagonist. It needs to be made by other women, because I think trying to sort of understand a very sort of important sort of female experience, I don't think perhaps having a man direct a film that is all women as the cast is, and that trying to make a point of that is not the best way of going around it. I think perhaps, the sort of more female-centered films do have a place in sort of the larger, more area of film and Hollywood and that, but it just needs to be made by women and have more women on these sort of production teams. You need to have more women in these creative spaces, so you can get these better told female stories and female experiences, because they are made by women.
There are very few female directors that have got the light of day. Greta Gerwig, who's just basically an up-and-comer, but Catherine Bigelow is, for example, she's gone the direction. I think she's really. I love Catherine Bigelow films because I'm an action head. I love action films, and not to be sexist or anything like that, but you don't see many women filmmakers go that direction, really. But you see loads of women want to make films and want to make. It could be horror films, it could be action films, it could be drama films, comedy films, but then they never really get the light of day, which is a shame, especially in Hollywood, because Hollywood is just full of aristocrats and just male.
And also I think the general wider film industry tends to be sort of more. Doesn't seem to be very inviting towards women as a whole, with sort of very predatory figures within Hollywood and the general larger film industry, such as Harvey Weinstein, who perhaps do turn women off.
They're in the 40s mindset. That's what I still think. They want to go. They're in the mindset of the golden age of Hollywood, and how the male authority figures there could do what they want, and I'm really not ashamed, but I feel really bad because you see, especially you get more of that in indie films. Loads of women directing indie films, and their films are amazing, but because they're amazing, but they never get picked up by Netflix or get picked up by Hollywood or get picked up by studios, and it's just it's really sad.
Yeah, I think some of my favorite films that I've watched this year are basically just female directors, and I think perhaps the sort of upper echelon of the film industry isn't as inviting to them as it is the sort of the indie sort of production world. Like Fish Tank, which is a wonderful film, and it's very well made by Andrea Arnold, fantastic director, and Joanna Hogg, who made The Souvenir and stuff like that. It's just kind of like, I don't know. Perhaps two men talking about feminism is perhaps I don't know, ironic in many ways, and I kind of see the irony there. But it's a great film, wonderful film that is incredibly well made, incredibly just sort of, I would, if I were you, just go watch it, go watch this film, and it also won best screenplay. I can't remember where. I think it was at the Cannes Festival. Cannes Festival. Which is amazing, really. If you don't know, the Cannes Festival is sort of a bunch of sort of indie films coming together and
I've been there. Not been into the festival, but I've been to where the actual festival is, and it's lovely.
Have you ever been to a film festival?
I've been to a few film festivals, but they're more. I've been to the York Short Film Festival when I was at York College. So a few great.
I went to the Flat Pack Festival last year.
Where's
not
that?
last year. In Birmingham.
Oh, nice.
And I went into this sort of industrial state in the middle of Digbeth, which, if you know what Digbeth is, you probably shouldn't be going there at the middle of the night by myself. and it was this sort of, oh my god, my phone. And it's sort of, in the middle of nowhere, just watching all of these sort of really experimental indie films, and I have this woman, and she's like opening and closing eyes. Anyway, and that's going off on a bit there, the thing, but this is a fantastic film.
Yeah,
so wonderfully made, so wonderfully done. Everything about this film is amazing, and it's just one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
Perhaps one day I'll make a list of all my favorite films, and then annoy people with it.
You're saying just before this, some of your favorite films you watched recently were by women. I've been recently watching a lot of Lynn Ramsey films, Ratcatcher, and especially when you talk about Kevin and You Were Never Really Here.
Yeah.
I watched that recently, and I didn't realize You Were Never Really Here was directed by Lynn Ramsey. And throwback to last episode, it's got Joaquin Phoenix in it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So it's very, very good.
He pops up and stuff that you don't know, do you? Just like, oh, Joaquin, what are you doing here?
It's you.
But yeah.
So would you say that this film has been one of your favourite films of the year?
Well,
it came out 2019. Was it one of your favourite films of 2019?
Well, I didn't watch it in 2019. But I think if I did, it probably wouldn't even have been then.
Wouldn't it?
I was still sort of, this guy who wanted to go around and make sort of house music. But I think as I watched it this year, I do think it's one of my favorite films of this year that I've watched.
Yes,
and I think it is amazing. I think it is fantastic. I think people need to go and watch it. I think people need to sort of see this film and get what from you had. And also, I think the fact that we didn't sort of mention as well, there's so many sort of wonderful, specific sort of female struggles with it, as well as also like the very sort of realistic depiction of sort of abortion in the film, which is very, very rarely ever done in modern cinema. And I think that's sort of very interesting of watching the film, and just kind of really fits with the film in such a way. But yeah, it's a great film. Love the film. It's amazing. Out of 10, what would you give it?
Me personally, I loved it. I've given all these. For me, it's an 8.5 to 9, just because I'm not a fan of dramas. But I'm not judging it on that. I'm judging it on visuals and stuff like that. I think it was an amazing film. But would I watch it again? Probably in bits, yes. Just for inspiration.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go out my way to watch it, if you know what I mean. Yes, I enjoyed my experience watching it. Everything that I said before, beautiful imagery and stuff like that. But like I said, I didn't really listen to the story arc and stuff like that. I just looked at visuals, and for that, I'm going to give it an 8.5 to 9 out of 10.
Yeah, that's good. I think. Yeah, it's definitely one of those films that you get inspired by, isn't it? It's one that you go like, this is a poignant part that like I want to have that in my scene. And I think if what do I want to give it?
You could go for the big 1-0.
I don't know. I mean, it's not my favorite film of all time, but it is definitely up there.
5.
I don't know. Give it a 9.5. I'll give it a 9.5.
Still a solid score.
I want to leave room. I want to leave room for improvement.
No changing. You've been a 9.5, and that's it. Good.
I'm in with a 9.5 now. Oh, yeah, I think that's a good score.
It's still, just because we didn't give it a 10 doesn't mean we hate. It's not like the inspirational. I feel like it's an amazing film.
Yeah, it's still
go and watch it. I've noticed French films are just really, really well shot as well, and also I've noticed that a few of them lots of LGBTQ films are French. Have you seen Blue is the Warmest Colour?
No, but I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's another French film about lesbians. So if you haven't already, if you like that film, if you watched Portrait of a Woman on Fire. Go and watch that as well. I don't know who it's by, but I know it's if you like your LGBTQ films, go and watch that as well. It's a great film.
Yeah, I really can't say enough sort of wonderfulness about this film. It is fantastic. I've seen it 3 times now, and every time I've sort of loved it. I think I very rarely ever watch films twice.
Yeah.
But when I do it, they are, I don't know. I tend to really, really love them and tend to have sort of a large connection with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about it then. We've talked enough about French films. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the show. Hopefully you've enjoyed me rambling on a bit about it. Next week we'll do one of Luke's favourite films.
That's still a hard question hard thing for me to choose, really. But
yeah,
we'll find out. You'll find out next week.
Yeah, you'll find out next week. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the show. I've been Oliver.
I've been Luke.
And we'll see you guys next week. All right, bye.
Bye.